What's up, guys? I filmed this video of me grinding a jewel blade. This is Damascus blade. It's Intrepid Damascus by Chad Nichols stainless. Um, I'm grinding it on a 14-inch wheel using a DD work rest, grinding jig, and rest for that matter. So I'm starting off here at 60 grit, and you can see what I'm doing initially is just checking that I'm at the right angle. And this is something I've messed up a few times in the past where if you start too aggressively, it's okay. You can fix it because you can just go, make it more of a shallow angle and work the grind up the blade. But if you start off too shallow and dig, into the top part of the blade, that's kind of hard to fix. You see, I'm constantly wiping the table because the on the fresh 60 grit, all the little grits break off at first and they fly all over the place. Even with safety goggles, they'll get into your eyes and it's kind of uncomfortable. But you know, just make sure that you're wiping it off so you have a nice steady grind. Just sitting here sipping on some sugar-free lemonade. It's just lemon water, and I eat a miracle berry. Um, from my yard beforehand, and it tastes like a really sweet. If you guys haven't tried Miracle Berry, you can find it on Amazon. You can find like the little dried up halves. And just chew on them and go have something sour, and it'll taste sweet. It's pretty cool if you're trying to cut back on sugar. I have a pretty bad sugar addiction, so I gotta do everything I can so get my fix. Those of you that know me, you know I have a really bad sweet tooth. The Miracle Berry definitely helps keep those cravings down. It's nice to have a compressor hose right next to you while you're grinding so you can just blow all the dust off. I ground for years without a compressor next to me. And then when I set this shop up, um, just so happened to place the compressor right next to the grinder. And I was like, wow, this is really convenient. I mean, even if your compressor isn't next to the grinder, you could just extend the hose. But I just thought of it. I would always use like a paintbrush to wipe the dust off. But a compressor is much easier, much more effective. And what I also like is that just you can blow some of the grit that sticks to the belt, so it's almost like a belt eraser at the same time. If you're consistent about it, you can also cool the blade down by just blowing air on it. Um, you won't have to dunk it in the bucket as often. But you see, I finished 60 grit on one side. Now I'm about to switch over to the other, making sure everything's nice and clean so that it sits flat on the jig. I think I already mentioned this jig is from DD Work Rest. I highly recommend those jigs. They're super straightforward, but it's really all you need. There's some like really fancy jigs out there, and I'm sure that they work, but I prefer the smaller platform. I think they're easier to maneuver. He sells a, I think this is a 3-inch jig, and then he sells like a 4-inch. The 4 inch is like feels significantly bigger to me, and it's, I guess if you're grinding like big fixed blades, it'll help. But for me, it just like it makes it too cumbersome. So I prefer the smaller jig. They also come with like a little plastic thing on the bottom. I just took it off and made sure that the steel was nice and flat. I feel like the steel on steel, um, it slides better than that little plastic piece that was on the bottom of it. It can get kind of gummy sometimes. The grits will kind of like stick to the plastic, and just, just a big fan of that. You can see I use the pusher quite a bit. I like to make sure everything's dust free while I'm grinding so that I'm not starting fires or getting dust in my eyes, or getting an uneven grinding surface. It's another thing that's huge. You saw me moving the light around. You'll see me do that quite a bit more throughout the video. Um, there's another lamp right above the phone that I don't move quite as often, but I do move it when I need to. Um, the reason why is because, especially with these holograms, just like the way I set up on the wheel, um, I'm kind of underneath a shadow. So if you don't have those lamps, you're kind of shadowing myself out. Um, I could grind higher on the wheel and just like increase the angle of the blade, but I don't know. I just find it more steady where it's at. I see how my elbows are like down by my sides. That's that's like super helpful for me with just keeping steady. So yeah, get as many lamps as you need to make sure that you're illuminating your workpiece as good as possible. You'll also notice that like I changed the angle of the light because there's a scribe down the middle of the blade so that I know where the center line is. And when um, when you switch the angle, you sometimes kind of like blow out like it reflects too strongly off the surface of the blade. So you have to kind of play with it so that you can see the scribe line. You can see there I kind of like struggle to get the belt off of this 14-inch wheel. Just the way that this KMG is set up, there's not a whole lot of clearance for the 14-inch wheel. So they kind of go on and off kind of tight. With a smaller wheel, it goes on a lot easier. But yeah, I kind of have to finagle them on there. This wheel. See, I'm kind of nursing my right arm a little bit. Went to jujitsu this morning and I got caught in a bicep slicer um, that I was not expecting. And it's one of those that by the time you realize that you're in trouble, there's some damage done. Even though I tapped, I had already squished my bicep pretty good. If you don't train jujitsu and you don't know what a bicep slicer is, um, even if you're looking at it like from the sidelines, it doesn't look like anything's going on, but it's essentially the guy's leg is in between your bicep and your forearm, and they're pulling on your on it, kind of like on your wrist, and pushing their shin into your bicep, and it hurts pretty good. Um, I'm trying out this new software. It's called InShot. It's helping me like do the voiceover to the video. But I'm looking down at this like the timeline here, and it's like showing me that the video's over even though I'm still recording. Um, so yeah, if I spend the next 30 minutes or whatever talking and it doesn't properly upload, it's been a big waste of time. I kind of enjoy making videos of me working and just showing people how to do things and kind of just staring at the knife making process. But it's just really time consuming. It's definitely something that I'm trying to make time for, but sometimes you just have to prioritize and work. I already give myself quite a bit of free time to do some of the other things that I enjoy, like jujitsu and uh, uh, I get off of work pretty early every day to make sure that I spend time with my daughter. So filming is definitely not a priority, but you know, I'll be making time when I can. Man, this Miracle Berry stuff is so good. I don't know how it's not like more popular. I feel like there's so many people that struggle with uh, their weight, sugar addictions, and just overall, like even people who are diabetic. It's like it's literally a natural berry that grows on a bush that most people could probably grow in a pot at home. Or you could just buy the halves of it. Something natural that makes anything sour taste extremely sweet. Mm. Yeah, it's not more popular, but it's that's for these days. It's not monetizable. It's not. It feels little sparks flying out. You can see I'm using the every time I use the compressor to blow off the knife, I kind of blow my legs off too because sometimes those little sparks will fall on my shorts, and I like to wear cotton shorts just because the I find that like the 100% cotton shorts just uh, not only are they more comfortable, they don't stay wet when you sweat as much as um, other materials. Like they'll get wet, don't get me wrong, but it seems like they transfer the sweat a little better. And the other thing is that they don't smell as bad. Like if you wear polyester, yeah, it's a lighter material and all and whatnot, and like it's supposed to wick moisture better, but they stink really fast. At least for me. Like even when you wash them, I feel like once the bacteria like gets into polyester, um, as soon as you start to heat up, you haven't even started sweating yet, and you can smell it. Whereas like with cotton, for whatever reason, that doesn't happen. So yeah, I think the point of the cotton was that when little embers fall on the cotton, they kind of like ignite the cotton a little bit, and you get a nice little burn on your thigh. So if you ever see little holes in my pants, you'll know what that's on my shorts. What I'm doing here is I use a set of calipers and I set them up to like the grind line on one side of the blade, and then I check the other side to make sure that it's at the same height. And then that's how I make sure I get a nice symmetrical grind on both sides. Sometimes just looking at it by eye alone um, is not the greatest. Your eyes will play tricks on you. So I confirmed with and it's just like an old broken caliper. It had batteries in it. I'm literally just using it to like match up each side. It's not measuring it. So my grip progression here is 60 grit to start. This blade is heat treated already, by the way. With folders, I like to just heat treat. Even with some fixed blades, I like to heat treat at first. I find that it just keeps everything mm, like flatter. Whereas if you grind, even if you grind halfway, it's kind of hard before you heat treat. I find that you get a little more warping. It's also easier when you're like setting your lock and your detent and whatnot that you have everything nice and flat and that it's already hardened. In my experience, anyways, I don't want to set a detent and a lock and then heat treat and then risk like a warp or like even just like some slight bit of expansion, uh, messing with tolerances. So yeah, my grip progression is 60 to start. Nice fresh 60 grit, 120 grit. Then I'll use a 240 grit Trizac belt. I find that the Trizac belts are really thick and they really help me get a nice swoop to my plunge. That can be a little bit harder with some of the thinner 240 grit belts. After that, I'll jump to 400 grit Trizac, and uh, depending on the blade finish, I'll either continue on a little bit higher from the hand rubbing or I'll stop at 400. If this particular Damascus, um, you can actually etch without hand rubbing it. So I'm going to just keep it at 400 before etching it. And for the most part, I would say like maybe 80% of the Damascus that you etch in ferric chloride, you don't need to hand rub first. If you're going to do any sort of like any sort of Damascus in like muriatic or sulfuric, where you're maintaining like a large portion of stainless, then you should probably hand rub first. You don't have to, but it's going to look a lot nicer. Those are the Trizac belts I was talking about. Like structured, they have like little ridges in them with grit, and are a lot thicker than the standard belt, much more rigid. They're great for surface gripping as well. And yeah, if you guys find this boring, me just talking over a video, let me know. If you enjoy it, also let me know because I don't want to waste your time or my time. Just going off some of the stuff I've seen people liking on YouTube, not necessarily in the knife world, but I know that the other videos I watch, like, people do voiceovers and I enjoy them, so I figured it might work for me. Uh, my friend Stefan also told me that a lot of the woodworking guys he watches, they do voiceovers when working. So yeah, if you guys like this format, let me know. And let me know too, like, do you guys want, like, if you don't want me to talk about like, what I'm doing, if you don't really care, you just want me to talk about life or both. It's kind of boring just to, like, right now I'm just doing the same thing I was doing 5 minutes ago. So I don't really have anything else to say. So I guess I'll just have to ramble and talk about life and not. Yeah, so the app I downloaded is called InShot, and lets you like do a voiceover a video, so that works. But if you guys know of any other apps that you recommend for like editing long format videos, let me know because I'm always looking for excuse me, not necessarily the best app, like, 'cause I really am not like super immersed in that world, but like something that's very easy and intuitive to use. That's, that's really what I prefer when it comes to editing. The shorts is easy because the editing software is like integrated into the video itself, or sorry, the like the YouTube app itself or Instagram. But when it comes to long form videos, you can have to edit outside of the program. You guys will notice I like as I get to the tip of the blade, what I do is I actually pull back. Like if I'm grinding, the tip is facing to the right. I pull back the left side of the jig, which pushes the tip into the wheel. And what that does is that it raises the grind of the knife. Uh, it raises the grind on the knife. I mean, so instead of basically pushing, you know, that tip up to make it parallel with the wheel, I'm doing the same thing by moving the tip back. So those two motions, so tip in or tip up, have like a similar effect on your grind as far as like where it takes it. I don't know if that made any sense. It's not, I almost confused myself, but yeah. And this is actually the first ever micro tool. Um, it was actually not done on purpose. I um I had like a little piece of Damascus that I wanted to use that just like barely fit the standard size. So I was like, you know what? I guess it was done on purpose, but like it wasn't planned out, to be honest. Like, you know what? Let me see if I can just make a micro jewel. I've been tempted to make micros of and most of my models before, but I've always kind of shied away from it just because you start to get like too many sizes. I feel like inevitably one of them just gets like alienated. It's like right now I have the regular jewel and the mini jewel. If I make a micro jewel, like I don't want the regular jewel to lose not popularity but like desirability, I guess. Um, because I think like my personal preference, I think that the regular size of my knives, I think is a really good practical size. It's not just because like it's the way that I just the regular size of pretty much all my blades, I think is like the ideal size. And then the mini, I'm making it more so really to appeal to the market because the market likes minis. But the regular size, in my opinion, is something that I feel like more useful. Um, but yeah, I mean, that is just my opinion. But I don't know if you guys can tell, but those kitty litter buckets underneath me are filled with water. And when I'm grinding, I'm actually kind of hugging them with my legs a little bit. And it adds stability to my grinding. Stability is all about points of contact and base. So anything you can use to gain a point of contact or set up a firm base, it's gonna really help. But you can see that like I'm holding the jig really with my thumb and my index finger, and then my middle finger is kind of riding the outside of the jig. But then like my palm and my pinky are kind of resting on the work rest, and that's another that's just adding more stability to your movements. I'm laughing because I think I was probably burning my fingers earlier. What I did to them in water. So we could talk a little bit about some of the materials on this knife. Um, Stainless Intrepid is really cool. It's made by Chad Nichols, and it's one of those Damascus that actually looks really good in several different facets. So like you could do dark etch on it and it looks great. And you could do a like a more polished edge and like erotic, and it also looks really good. Um, I usually choose to go darker edge on it because I tend to like the darker themes for the most part. Um, but like Walter Randolph um, usually does so either like a neurotic or sulfuric edge, I guess, on this steel, and it looks fantastic. The handle material is green emerald micarta, and green emerald micarta is it's really cool stuff. I believe it's vintage, and I want to say about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, my buddy Rustin sent me he sent me some of this stuff to work with to make him a knife for his book order. He waited a very long time for. Um, so thank you, Rustin, for the patience. I think Rustin was in the books for like 5 years. But anyways, he sent me this stuff and it was awesome. Like I loved it right off the bat. It wasn't very popular at all. And as soon as he sent it to me, I asked him where he got it, and he said he got it from Knife Pops Knife Shop or something like that. So I went on there, and they had plenty of it. I ordered 3 sets of it, I believe, and I think it was $20 a set um, when I ordered it. And had I known that, I mean, I should have known because that seems to be the way that the micarta world is going. But if you find a micarta that you like and it's still reasonably priced, buy all of it that you can afford. Because a year and a half later, I tried working with this stuff again. I had already used all of the pieces that I bought from Pops. So I go to Pops and they're sold out. And then I go to like, your standard micarta resellers, and the same piece that I bought for like 20 bucks, same like set of scales, was about 300 and something dollars. I was pretty upset, mostly with myself for not having bought more. Um, so yeah, just learned. Now I've actually, ever since then, whenever I use a micarta, I've actually done it twice already, and I like it. I just buy it as much of it as I can and stash it away. Uh, Not for resale, like just for my own purposes. Like I don't know, just I guess it's just me being greedy, but I don't want to have to pay 10 times the price of my Carta if I can avoid it. That little thing you guys just saw me use there was they call it like a belt eraser. It's supposed to like clean the grits off, but when you're using a work rest underneath, you can see I'm like trying to clean it here without getting my fingers chewed up by the belt, but um, it'll like spit that eraser onto the work rest, and then you gotta clean it off. So it's kind of a thing. But I like to use it. Excuse me. I like to use it more when I when I'm grinding a, on a platen or something where I don't have a work rest. I don't know if you guys can see. If you look closely, you can see this belt sprung like a fiber, and that's usually how you end up getting slapped in the face by a belt. So I'm just take it off real quick and change it before I get slapped in the face by it. That is usually a pretty annoying situation when that happens. It's pretty scary. It's happened to me more than once. Definitely, definitely shakes you up. I don't know why I put it back on the rack. I probably should throw it on the ground. Sort of throw it away after I'm done recording this. So you can see kind of like an awkward position pushing up that belt. So I'm pushing my kind of bit. That's me trying to clean up that erasure that got spit onto the work rest. So grinding the swedge now. Main grind is done. I think I put a swedge on all my models actually. I like the look of a swedge on a knife. I think it gives it a lot of character. Um, it, it has several functions. For piercing, it makes piercing uh, better, um, more effective. Will penetrate easier. For one, it'll remove weight, um, and it looks badass. So yeah, Sledges for the win. The main thing I'm looking to do with my swedge is take it as close to the thumb stud as I can without overlapping it, and then I have, because then the thumb stud won't sit flat. But the further back you can take that swedge, the nicer it's gonna look. It gives kind of like the appearance of having a longer blade than it really is. For the swedge, I oftentimes start off 120, skip 60 altogether, just to move a lot of stuff, and go to 240 and 100. So I prefer to grind as well. Like I like to grind one grit, switch sides, the other side, switch grits. Some people like to just do one side of the blade all the way through, and then the other side of the blade all the way through. I find that that can, like, I can't match things as easily that way. It's also less efficient because switch belts twice as many times. these uh, these structured Trizac belts. Um, they work really great when hitting like the entire surface. But if you ever like, for example, let's say if you're grinding into like the backspace or something that doesn't take up the entire surface of the belt, you can create grooves in it, which can lead to like uneven grindings. So if you're ever using these, be careful that you're not grinding grooves. It's belts. You can actually bring these back to life pretty good too if you dress them. You have the carbide rods, then you grind the grooves out of it and reuse it all over again. The ridges on them are so tall that sometimes they'll fill up with grit. I don't feel like the belt's dull, but if you dress them properly and remove all those grit from the ridges, it will cut again. So they have a pretty good life expectancy. expectancy. Um, so you guys know what I mean. I feel like I also like to. I mean, I pretty much always wear my face mask, but every now and then I'm gonna jump in the grinding room really quick and just grind something for a couple seconds. If it's a regular ceramic belt, sometimes I won't put my mask on. But when I'm using those structure abrasive belts, they create so much more dust. I pretty much always get one set of lungs. That's so terrible. There's probably already a bunch of particles of harmful things floating around my shop that I can't really avoid, so I'm not trying to make it worse by not wearing a mask when there's a ton of it in my part. You can see what I'm doing here is inspecting the symmetry of the swedge. You look at it from every angle, and that's something that collectors will look for. The higher end you go, they want really clean plunge lines. They want symmetry, not just on your grinds, like throughout the knife. Like everything you do should be as symmetrical as you can get it by hand. It's part of the art. Like it shows that you are putting, uh, you know, time and detail. So yeah, I saw it was a little bit off there, so I came back to just make that other side of the switch a little bit deeper and have it match. And like I said, sometimes your eyes can play with you a little bit. So taking it off the jig, inspecting it, like turning it around, giving it different angles helps to make sure it's perfect. And it's not going to be perfect. I mean, this is all done by hand, but um, it goes to everything. It's good. We're almost wrapping up here. Close the phone off the tripod to show you guys grinds and a few different lights. See the pattern coming through there. You still have to clean up the flats and the perimeter of the knife, but the grind for the most part is nice thin grinds, as symmetrical as I could get them. Clean plunge lines. Good job. Thanks for watching.